I didn't have a chance yet to highlight anything, so we'll pause as we go along. So the subject is about Yesh Koch Biat Bezdin Laka Davar Min Torah. Does it doesn't have ability to uproot something of the Torah? And it goes back to our Mishnah, that our Mishnah said that Mamzer, that Avlad Mamzer Mizeh Mizeh. What was that? We had the case where a woman got married with one witness and the husband came back. And we say Avlad Mamzer Mizeh Mizeh, that if she stays with the first husband, the kids are going to be mamzerim, and the right said they're not. It's really she's really married. So how did they invent the mamzer drabana? And the Gemara would assume that when it says mamzer, Rav Chisda says that it means he's allowed to marry a mamzeres, and that means that it's going against the Torah, because according to the Torah law, he's not a mamzer, and he can't marry mamzeres. So Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan said he may not marry mamzeres. It just means mamzer l'chumra. But Rav Chisda took it to mean that even lakula, that he could marry mamzeres, and that there's a concept called yesh koch b'yad cham lakav min Torah, that Rav Chisda seems to hold up, and Rabba is arguing on that, and that's what we're holding. So we're on the top. So that's going to be our search now. We're going to go out about eight proofs. Really, they're going to be more like 14 proofs, but 7 of them are going to be combined into one. But altogether, the Gemara brings about 14 issues about places where you find that Rabbanan went against the Deraisa. So the Gemara starts on the second line.
Sorry, one day that she got married, like a mitzvah.
So then the Mishnah said that she goes back to the first husband, then she's happily married afterwards. That's the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if she had to wait, and then she's allowed to get married back to the first husband. She's considered a full onus, and she goes back to the first husband. Tashma, Achal Truma Tmeya. Somebody ate Truma Tmeya. And the halach is when a Zar eats Truma, he has to pay back. He pays back food, and the food becomes Truma. Here he ate Truma Tmeya. So what is the payment? This Azar, non-Kohen ate Truma Tmeya. No one's supposed to eat Truma Tmeya. But besides being Truma was also Tameh. No one's supposed to eat it, but the Azar ate it, he has to pay. Meshalem Chulin Tahorim. He has to pay back Chulin, which is Tahor, and it's going to become Truma. That's a lot that it becomes Truma. Even though he ate Truma Tmeya, he has to give better than he got. He ate Truma Tmeya, he has to give back Chulin Tahor, which is going to become Truma Tahor. What if he paid Chulin Tmeya? What if he did what he wasn't supposed to do? He paid back Chulin, which is Tameh. Some Chasam Mishum Rav Meir b'shogig tashlum of tashlumim b'meizin tashlum of tashlumim. The shogig, if he paid back without realizing that was what he was paying back, so then it's a good payment. But if he did it intentionally, he knew you're not supposed to, and he still did it, so then it's not a payment. And really, that's what the Gemara is going to be stressing. The Gemara is going to be focusing on these words that b'meizin ain't tashlum of tashlumim. The Gemara is going to talk about how could they do that. If in the rice it is considered a payment, then it's going to be considered kosher payment. How could the Rabbanan take it down? That's going to be the Gemara's issue, but let's go further to finish the rest of the Brisa and the Gemara's explanation before we get back to the Raya. The Chachamim Omrim, Echazeh v'echazeh tashlum of tashlumim v'choyzum v'shalom chulvin Torah. The Chacham argue on Sumchus in the name of Rav Meir and say there's no difference shogig and mezid. Again, Rav Meir said the shogig gets a good payment, the mezid is not a good payment, and according to the Chachamim, no different shogig and mezid. Tashlum of tashlumim, which means that means that it's a good payment, but he has to pay a second time. That he has to pay again. It sounds like it's a bigger knas. 2 points. First of all, even a shogeg, and also you don't just say b'mezid it's not a payment. He has to pay twice because whatever he paid is considered a payment, but he also has to do a good payment also. One payment is not the good one, means it's a good payment. It means what does mean good? That it counts. He's obligated. He doesn't get it back. He doesn't get reimbursed. But he has to also give a good payment of a chulin Torah. So the Kohen is going to get chulin Tahorim, and he got Chulin Tmeim. Now he also gets Chulin Tahorim also.
No returns.
That's what it says. And also, now besides no returns, he also has to pay the payment he was supposed to have given. Before the Gemara gets to the point, it goes according to the Mishali, not according to the value, according to the amount. So, or there's a focus about that at least. But before the Gemara gets to the point, it's going to take time until we get to the point. It might have put all this in parentheses. Let's put in parentheses if we want. This is a kasha with a teretz, and the teretz is going to go until till about here. Okay, so this is analyzing the price of it says that if he paid chulin to Mayim, it's not a payment. B'mezid, Rabbi Meir says it's not a payment. The Gemara doesn't understand. He's doing very well. Tavel bracha. On the contrary, he should get a bracha for doing what he did. What did he eat? He ate truma tmeya. Truma tmeya, the Kohen has no value for it. He only can use it as fire, as fuel, but he can't eat it. Even when he's tummy, he can't eat it. But he's giving him back chulin tmeim. Chulin tmeim, at least the Kohen can eat when he's tummy. When he's tahor, he'll eat truma better. But when he's tummy, he can't eat truma. So let him eat at least chulin tmeim. The Gemara seems to say that when you give him chulin tmeim, he's benefiting. He ate truma tmeya. He said, now you're going to give him chulin tmeim. The whole Gemara seems to ignore the fact that the halacha is when you pay for eating truma, so the payment becomes truma. Means if somebody ate truma by mistake, he's supposed to give chulin, the same amount of what he ate, and it becomes truma. The Gemara seems to ignore that point. Well, we'll just learn the Gemara simple, even though it's not true. It means that the halacha is that it becomes truma. So the Gemara's kasha is not such a kasha, because really when he gives chulin tmeim, it's going to become truma tmeya. It's not that the Kohen could use it. When the Kohen gets his payment, it's going to become truma tmeya. It's true, he gave chulin tmeim, but then when it comes to the Kohen's hands, it becomes truma automatically. So with the Gemara's kasha that he can eat meitim also is not really meduyak, or it can't take it literally because he's not allowed to eat it. So Rashi and Tosfos to talk about this, but I'm just reading the Gemara the way it says it, that as if the Gemara is looking at it that you gave chulin tmeim, and the Kohen could use chulin tmeim better than he was before. So why are you giving him a knas for? What did he do wrong? And the Gemara might have even asked, why not? Why give chulin torim? Give chulin tmeim. Chulin tmeim is also good. Chulin torim is even better, but chulin tmeim is also not bad, better than what he ate. That's the most kasha. Amar Rava, Amri lo Kadi. Kadi is the name of a person. Some say that not Rava, but Kadi said, Chasur mechzer b'chiktan. You have to fill in the brisa. A little bit is missing. Achal truma tmeya mishalim koldu. It's true that if you ate truma tmeya, not like our brisa says, achal truma tmeya, you can pay back whatever you want. You can give back chulin tmeim also because no difference. It's not going to be worse. It may be even be better, but it's really not going to be worse. It'll become truma tmeya. Achal truma tahora. That's what really we're talking about. The real brisa is talking about achal truma tahora. Achal truma tahora. Right now, because before you had truma tahora, now you're going to give him chulin tmeim, so it's worse than he had before. Achal chulin truma tmeya, then pay whatever you want, but achal truma tahora, then mishalim chulin tahora, then you have to pay good stuff chulin tahora, and it's going to become truma tahora, and over there shilim chulin tmeim. That's when the problem is. So we changed the price a little bit. That we're not talking about that he ate chulin tmeim. We're talking about he ate chulin tahora. Over there is a machlokis. What's the machlokis again? Everything stays the same as it was before. That according to Rav Meir, b'mezid it's okay, even though you did what you're not supposed to. You're supposed to really pay back chulin tahor. You pay the chulin tmeim, but if you did it b'shogig, it's okay. B'mezid it doesn't count. B'mezid in tashlumin tashlumin, and the Gemara thinks in tashlumin means that the whole payment is not considered a payment. Ben b'shogig, ben b'mezid tashlumin tashlumin ve'achos mishalim chulin tahor. So the Gemara did in the parentheses was to change what it said originally. It says achal truma tameya, that the case of achal truma tameya, the Gemara changed it to achal truma tahora. That's what the Gemara did in order to make the brisa make sense. Because if it was achal truma tameya, the Gemara doesn't see what's so bad. You're giving him chulin tameya, what's so bad? So the Gemara says you're right. If it will be achal truma tameya, you can get back anything. The issue is achal truma tahora. That's where you have the machlokis. And now the Gemara is going to focus on these words of Sumchus and the name of Rav Meir that say b'mezid it doesn't count. What does it mean it doesn't count? As if it's not a payment at all. It goes back to the Yisrael who ate this, who made this payment, and it's not considered a payment. Again, the Gemara is going to talk as if the payment doesn't become truma. We know the truth is that the payment doesn't become truma, but the Gemara talks without that information. The midiraisa it is a good payment. It means the Yisrael gave the Kohen that because he ate truma tahora, he gave the Kohen chulin tameim. Midiraisa it's a good payment, and it's really the Kohen's money. And Rabbanan said that it's not going to be the Kohen's money. But the Raisa, it's a payment. The Mekadesh Behen Kohen Isha Tafsula Kedushi, that if the Kohen would use this money to marry a woman, it would be married. And Rabbanan took away the payment. And what's going to happen? We said that the marriage is not a marriage. Because Shavina and Isha Seshla Alma, the woman who she thinks is with the Raisa will be married, we're going to say now, is not considered married. And she's going to go out and marry somebody else. So you're uprooting, the Fritz is saying, you're uprooting the Torah law. The Torah law says that this woman is married, and the Torah and the Rabbanan came and changed it around. The obvious kasha is going to be hefker bez and hefker. That the Gemara, since it's a monetary issue over here, the Gemara could have easily answered hefker bez and hefker. Tais has the kasha, but again we'll leave the Taisvis. But take the Gemara as is. Also, the Gemara could have asked the easier question. Forget about the kedushin. He could have spoken about, is it considered truma or not? That since the halach is that the payment becomes truma, the Gemara could have talked about the rice is truma, and the one saying it's not a payment and it's not truma. The Gemara could have asked that also. So the Gemara answers to a big dochak to explain the brisa that it should not be approved to Rav Chisda that yesh koch b'yad chacham malak adav min haTorah. My ain't tashlum of tashlumim to come Rav Meir. With the money that he got for payment of somebody that ate truma tahora and gave back chulin tmeim. The Kohen has chulin tmeim as payment for somebody who's eating truma by mistake, and with the rice it's his money, and he gave it to a woman that said mekudeshesli bechulin zeh, and with the rice says she's married, and the Rabbanan say she's not married. That's the most kasha that you see that Chachamim could uproot a Torah law.
Even though it's Shabbos is the same?
It's not his. The Rabbanan say the payment is not a payment. He ate Truma Torah, he should have given back Chulin Torah. He gave back Chulin Tmeim, the Rabbanan say it's not a payment. But the rice it is a payment. And the Rabbanan said it's not a payment, and it's not his money. And the money that he used to marry, this money he used to marry a woman, it's not his money.
But again, only the Rabbanan.
And that's the kasha. That what does that mean? But the Raisha, she's married. She's Aisha Sush. And the Rabbanan say, go ahead, get married. You're not married. So that's the kasha. That the Chachamim are uprooting a Torah law. That's what Chisda's proof.
I don't understand. At the beginning when it said Tamei, so how did they get out of it? They just say it's Tamei.
We erase the word and we write Torah. We say it's a mistake. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. A misquote. So the Gemara, in order to answer this question, explains the brisa in a very chiddush way. My ain't tashlum the kamar of Meir. These words, ain't tashlum, that sounds like it's not a payment at all. Don't take it like that. Doesn't mean that. You know what Meir means when he says ain't tashlum, the boy the maheda shlume chulin tohorin. That's another way of saying that you have to pay also chulin tohorin. Means that the payment that you did is a payment. Don't say ain't tashlum means it's not a payment and it goes back to the Yisrael. And he has to pay now. He has to pay besides this. This payment is not enough. That he has to also give a tashlumim of chulin, which is a pella, because that's what the Rabbanan say. It says in the Brayis Machlokas that the Rebbeinu says it's not a payment, and the Rabbanan say it's a payment and pay a second time. So now you're saying that the Rebbeinu also is like that. So both of them said the same thing. Both of them said the same thing, that this payment is not enough. You have to give a second payment, but the first payment also stays. So that's not a Machlokas, and the Brayis openly says it's Machlokas.
Is that like a constant or just
Yes. It's a knas that since he did bad, so we make him the payment is a payment, and also you have to do it again, like it says here on top. So that's what the Rabbanan said, that the payment is a payment, but you have to pay a second time. So now we're saying that Rameir also means that when he said in tashlum, he also meant that it's not enough. You have to pay a second time. So then there's no machlokas, and the Brisa says there's machlokas Rameir and the Chachamim. So how could you explain Rameir like that? The very big docha. The only arguing on the second point, even though it sounds like there's 2 points going on. Rav Meir said, let's see the words over here, maybe highlighted in a different color, just to show the difference between the two statements. It was Rav Meir that said, the Meir said, of Tashlumah. And here he said, the Chachamim say, so if you look at the words alone, the difference between Rav Meir and the Rabbanan, there's a lot of points going on. The first one is that according, this one, just to show what Rav Meir said, I didn't underline enough, if this is what we want. Rav Meir said, the shogeg, it's a good payment. The mezid is not a good payment. The Chachamim say, no different shogeg or mezid, no different shogeg and mezid, it's a payment, and you pay a second time. So the words seem to say that according to Rav Meir, the shogeg, it's a good payment, nothing you have to do further. And by Mezid, it's not a payment at all. But the Gemara is saying no, that he means to say that by Mezid and the Shogig, no different Shogig and Mezid, it's a payment and you have to do it again. And the Gemara says Homachlokas is only as far as the Shogig. As far as the Mezid is Homachlokas. Both of them say, even though they use different words, the Mary called it Ein Tashlum of Tashlumin, and the Rabbanan called it Tashlum of Tashlumin, Tuchozim Shalom Chul and Torah. Both of them mean the same thing. To say that it's not a payment means it's not enough of a payment. You have to give also a second time. And when Rabbanan spoke out, that they said that is a payment, they give a second time. Both of them mean the same thing. Very hard in the words. And the Gemara is saying, what are they arguing about? Only the din of shogeg, that according to Rav Meir, the shogeg, it's a payment, and you don't have to pay a second time. And according to Rabbanan, even the shogeg also, you have to pay a second time. So pretty big docha. The words of the Brisa are very difficult according to this, but the Gemara is happy in order to say that it's not going to be uprooting of the Brisa. Kohen could keep it, but she's going to get a second time also. So that was that raya, and we answered it. So again, there's no Rav Chisda is trying to bring raya. So all these gemaras are going to be Rav Chisda is trying to prove that the Rabbanan could uproot the raisa. He tried to prove it from this raisa we just had, and we knocked it down. Not a proof. Now we go on another raya. There's going to be many rayas. That's one after the next. Tashma. They say the same knas, but they say it's even by a shogeg. They say the same as Rameir said. They don't say even by a shogeg. Rameir says shogeg is no knas, and the Rabbanan say shogeg is also knas. But both of them are saying that whatever you gave, and you have to give a second time. You have to pay a second time. So that was a little bit the halachas about eating truma b'shogeg. The next halacha about dam, a korban, and dam became tamei. If the blood of the korban became tamei, so you're not supposed to do zrika with that blood. And somebody did. Dam shenitma v'zarko. Somebody, there was the blood of the korban that became tamei, and he did zrika. It wasn't supposed to. The shogeg horza, b'meisah lahorza. If he did the zrika of the blood, the shogeg, he didn't realize that he's not allowed to, then the korban counts. Horza, like ratzon, lahem, the korban counts. But the mezid, it doesn't count. And the Gemara's kash is that the raisa counts even the mezid.
The sprinkling is the last step.
Well, there's more to do, but that makes the korban a korban. After that, you're supposed to put the meat onto the mizbech. You're supposed to burn the halavim, or if it's a ola, the whole thing goes on. Right, the korban is yotze if you did the dam. So here it says that if you did the dam, which is tummy, we're supposed to. The shogeg, it's okay, it's a good korban, but mezid is not a good korban. And the kash is that the halacha is that even if you did it b'mezid, but the rice it is a good korban. So here we're going to say that it is a good korban even if you did it b'mezid. And the kash is going to be, how could everyone say that it's not a good korban? That's a chumrah, but it comes out of kula because this korban that a person bought a korban, that's a korban chatas, and we say it's not a good korban because since you've sprinkled the blood and it was tamei, not a good korban. Bring another chatas. It's not really a second. The one he's bringing now is not going to be a real chatas. He was Machal Shabbos, you bought a chatas, and that was really a kosher korban chatas. Now you're telling bring another korban chatas. The second korban chatas is not a real korban. It's really chulin. Bringing chulin bazor. You're not allowed to do that. So the Rabbanan, by making this chumrah, are really uprooting a daraisa l'kula. They're going to say bring another korban, which is chulin. That's the Gemara's kasha now. First, the Gemara says the daraisa atsuye.
What's the process? Sitz maratza?
That's what it's going to say. It's going to say tzitz maratza on even if it makes it also. It's a little different, and that's the Gemara's kasha that the tzitz causes that the korban is kosher even though the blood was tamei. The Tanya the blood is a good. The zrika that he did with the tamei blood is l'ratzon. The Tanya amatzitz maratza. What does the tzitz make l'ratzon? Aladam, alabosa, alachelo, shenitma, bein b'shogig, bein b'mezid, bein bonus, bein b'ros, and bein b'yachad, bein b'tzibur. That if the blood or the meat or the fats became tamei, no difference if it was happened b'shogig or unintentional, intentional, not by his fault at all, or willingly, and even if it's a korban yochid, not after a korban sibur, even an individual korban, it's maratza. And what happens? So with the rice it is maratza, and we say b'mezid lo horsa. What's going to happen? He has to bring another korban now. He's going to bring in chulin into the azar to bring a second korban. The second korban is really not a korban. He says it was Machal Shabbos after bringing a korban chatas, and the first one was not good. I bring a second one, and he brings us korban chatas, and it's not a korban chatas. It's really chulin because you can't bring a chatas 2 times for the same avera. So that's the kasha again. If Chris is trying to show, I'll show you a case where Rabbanan are able to uproot the deraisa. Third white line. And you don't mean to say a kula. You don't mean to say bring another korban. Don't bring another korban. You're not allowed to bring another korban because you cannot put the raisa and the first korban is kosher. It doesn't mean to be machmir. What's the machmir? That don't eat the meat. That usually after you do this, you sprinkle the blood, so then the kohen eat the meat, and here you're not allowed to. If you make a chumrah, the chumrah will say that the korban is not good. But now we're not going to say bring another korban. No, you can't bring another korban because that's going to be chulin ba'azorah. I will violate this kapruba, but the owner does get a good kapara, means it doesn't bring another korban. We don't tell him bring another korban. So the Gemara thinks we got out of it that we didn't uproot any deraisa, but the Gemara says still you did uproot something. So from a sakra achilas basa at the end of everything, but you did change something because the deraisa the kohen was supposed to eat the meat, and you're telling them not to eat the meat. So you're also uprooting a deraisa. That the people who are getting it, the Gemara is whatever the words of the pasuk, but the Gemara says that they're talking about by Parshas. Which Parsha is this? This has been by the Parsha of the Miluim that the Kohanim are supposed to eat the korban, Those people that are getting a kapara, those are the kohanim that are inaugurated by the miluim, they should eat it. And that means any korban that whenever the kohanim eat, that the kohanim eat the korban, and the one who brought the korban, if it's a korban chatas, whatever it might be, so they get a kapara, they get atoned by the kohanim eating. You see, it's a mitzvah for the kohanim to eat. It's not just a rishus. It means that it's a mitzvah for the kohanim to eat the meat. So here, if you say that with the raisa, it's a good korban. What happened over here again? They sprinkle the blood, which is tamei, by b'mezid. And we say the korban is really kosher, and don't bring another korban. That korban was kosher, but the kohanim are not allowed to eat the meat. Now with the raisa, they're supposed to eat the meat, so you're going to leave the meat not to be eaten. So you're uprooting of the raisa also. So here, this next couple of words is famous words everybody knows. Amalei sheval tasashani. That just to be passive is different. This is the famous Gemara that says, Yesh koch b'yad chachamim laka davar min haTorah b'sheval tasa. That the chachamim could uproot something of the Torah if they say to do it passively, not actively, passively. And this is the Gemara, because here, very good, beautiful. The Gemara doesn't have that in number of days, and that's one of the examples that for the chachamim to say that you're not supposed to blow the shofar, you should not blow the shofar on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, but the Rashi is supposed to. They want to say don't. That's a good kasha. Of course, they could have asked that also. That you see that they want to have a call to uproot a mitzvah daraisa, as long as they're doing it passively. And that's what the Gemara says here also, that here Rabba's moda means the whole machlokes was if the chachamim could uproot a halacha of the Torah, and if Chisda says yes, Rabba says not, and here Rabba gives in that sheval tasa. I agree. If it's passively, they could uproot it, but the machlokes is if they could do it actively, like the case of our Mishnah was Avlad Mamzer, that he could marry a mamzeres. That's called not passive. That's called active. If Chisda says yes, Rabba says no. But here, Rabba gives in that it's sheval tasa, and this is the famous Gemara that Yesh koch b'yad chachamim laka davar min haTorah sheval tasa, according to everybody. Rav Chisda is more extreme, and he says even kumasei, even if it's something to do with an active violation of the deraisa, also they could. But everybody agrees that a sheval tasa, that it's only passive. Sit. The word literally means sheval tasa. Sit and don't do anything. That's called passive. And the other one is kumasei, get up and do. So Rav Chisda holds that the chachamim could uproot the deraisa even actively, and the Rabba, everyone's matzkim that they could uproot the deraisa if it's only passive. In this case, that they're not saying don't eat the meat, that's called passive. You leave the meat, it becomes nosa. But the first case, the Gemara thought that it means you're going to bring another korban the next day, that's going to be considered active. And there, Rabbi says no.
And what happens to the kapara from the final?
The yotze, the real kapara is from the blood. If the blood was kosher, so then it's a kosher korban. The kohanim mochla means that the kohanim are supposed to eat it. That's better. If the kohanim eat it, is more. But the korban is kosher even if they don't eat the meat. That's really the halacha. That even if the kohen don't eat the meat, it became noser. Also, the bottom don't bring another korban. The yotze. Amalei. Rav Chisda said to Rabba, I had a long list of questions. Means this is a whole list of questions that Rav Chisda is trying to prove to Rabba that yesh koch b'yad chachamim laka davar min haTorah. And now Rabba answered him, I agree to sheval tasa. But now Rav Chisda says I had a long list of questions and you answered all of them. So I'm not all of them. There are 7 questions I had ready in my pocket to ask you, but I'm not going to ask them because this one answer answers all of them. And to ask you. I wanted to ask you.
I wanted to ask you.
Orel, one at a time. Okay, I can't do one at a time. That's what I mean to do. I mean to do one at a time. But there's Orel. Try to do it again. Okay, it's not working. It's not listening to me. Okay, there, 1, 2. Okay, no good. Okay, give in. I wanted to ask you a lot of questions. I wanted to ask you 1, Orel, 2, Hazor, 3, Zemel, Ismail, Southern Betzitzis, 4, Kifshat Seres, 5, Shofar, 6, Lulav, 7. I want to ask you 7 kashas, but you answered all kashas already. Once you told me that you agree that sheval tasa is mutter because that's not considered uprooting, so too all these are sheval tasa, have no kasha. So we'll go through them a little bit. Orel means that a person who was circumcised, he has to wait 7 days in order to bring the korban pesach. And in Mele Gershon's guy Pesach ain't shoftin Allah. That after he was Orel, he has to wait 7 days in order to do the korban pesach. But the Rashi is allowed to. So how could the Rabbanan say not to bring a korban pesach? But the Rashi is supposed to bring a korban pesach. They did it. How did they do it? Sheval tasa. They just said don't bring the korban pesach. That they could do because it's only passive. Hazar means if somebody has to do hazar, and he's tamei, and he has to do azor in order to become kosher to do the Korban Pesach, azor from the paraduma. We tell him don't do it on Shabbos, and it's not going to be the Korban Pesach. But the Rashi is allowed to do it, and he's not going to, and he's not bringing the Korban Pesach. Also, he wants to do azor on Shabbos, but the Rashi is allowed to. Rabbanan said don't do it, and he's not going to bring the Korban Pesach. He came out Shabbos at Pesach. He has to do azor shvi, and then maybe he bring the Korban Pesach. The Rabbanan stop him and say don't do azor. I'm not going to be able to do the Korban Pesach, so you won't do the Korban Pesach. So I'm not following. No, Yisrael does this. This is about paraduma. How do you do the paraduma? So you're not supposed to do anzah on Shabbos. You're not supposed to. It's like fixing him up. Say we're going to the mikvah. He's fixing himself up. So that's Asim Rabbanan, and Isra Rabbanan is going to stand in the way of the Korban Pesach. Yeah, the Rabbanan said we could do that. The next one is Ismail. If so, no, the next one is Ismail, which means a mila knife, and they didn't bring it on Shabbos before Shabbos, so you're not allowed to bring it, even though it's only Issur Rabbanan. Even in the case where it's not going to go through Rosh Hashanah, you're only going to go through a place which is only Issur Rabbanan, and you're going to miss the Milah. You're going to have to do the Milah on the next day. So Issur Rabbanan stands in the way of Milah, and you don't do it. Sadin B'tzitzis means you have a garment made out of pishtan, out of linen, and the rice you're supposed to put on tzitzis, even though it's going to be shatnez. And the Rabbanan say they're scared that you'll be over on Kalayim, even when it's not going to be a mitzvah of tzitzis. Sadin right. Sadin means a sheet or something, but it means it's made out of linen. And with the rice, we had this in the beginning of the Masechta that the mitzvah of tzitzis overrides the Isser of Shabbos. It's called Aseder Chalos Aseh. But the Rabbanan said maybe he's going to wear it at night. Maybe he'll wear it at night. That night there's no mitzvah of tzitzis. You have to take it off in the nighttime, only the daytime. And because of that, they said don't put on tzitzis, and that's called Shev Al Tasa. That's a very interesting point. That this is called Shev Al Tasa. We would say, why is it called Shev Al Tasa? You're putting on a garment of four corners without tzitzis. Why is it called passive? Question. A very important question. Why is it called passive when you put on a four-cornered garment without tzitzis? So you're doing.
You're saying that it's not without tzitzis?
Yeah, he's not allowed to put on tzitzis. We tell him don't put on tzitzis. So they're not saying you're not allowed to wear a garment. Don't put on tzitzis. Some of the rice he has to wear tzitzis. Some of them are not.
No, Shabbos is because the assay is to put on tzitzis.
The assay is to put on tzitzis. That's a fascinating idea. That when you put on a garment without tzitzis, what did you transgress? The mitzvah to put on tzitzis. And if you can't put on tzitzis, that's called Shev Al Tasa. That's called passive. We're not talking about any time factor. We're talking about that he has a linen garment, a linen arbor canvas, and with the rice he's supposed to put on tzitzis, chelas, and he doesn't, which is wool, and it's going to be wool and linen. They want to say don't put it on. Don't put it on. And I can wear the beged? Yeah, you can wear the beged. Don't put on the tzitzis. And the one calls that Shev Al Tasa because putting on the beged is not the vera. The vera is now that you have a beged, put on tzitzis. It's just to point out it's different than shatnez. When a person puts on is wearing a garment of putting on or continue to wearing it, it's a lo silba shatnez. That's avera, but there's no avera to where it's a asay. Put on tzitzis, and you can't put on tzitzis because everyone said not to. That's called Shev Al Tasa. That's the third. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, there's a gzer rabbanan that he might wear it at night, and at night there's no mitzvah of tzitzis. So then he's just doing an avera of shatnez without the mitzvah of tzitzis. In the daytime, I say the chalos asay. So there's a los asay of shatnez, but he's doing a mitzvah asay which overrides the tzitzis overrides. But if it's at night, there's no or sus laila or laila, whatever the din is, there is no mitzvah of tzitzis then. So then he's just wearing shatnez time. Don't put on these tzitzis strings at night because it's tzitzis that are wool. At night, there's no mitzvah of tzitzis, or at night, or night garment, whatever you hold. And then he's doing only shatnez without any mitzvah. So because of that, they said, so don't wear it even in the daytime because you might wear it at nighttime. Because every shul sus laila.
By the Nilo, how do they bring the baby to the oh, they don't bring the baby.
And the knife should be there from before Shabbos. The way we do it always on a Shabbos bris, the knife's supposed to be there before. If you forgot the knife, you don't have a meal. The Mol says I forgot to bring the knife. Now there is an issue about doing it through a goy. That's the issue that the post can talk about. You might tell a goy to do it, to bring the knife. Or the baby, whatever. But that's the most not talking about the case. There's no guy available.
Most of the time it's done in shul.
So they bring the knife before Shabbos. It doesn't come carrying the knife. Now, if you have an Erev, you have an Erev. But the place where there's no Erev.
How do they bring the baby? A guy can bring the baby?
Also, the Pashtus is not. The Pashtus, where do you have it? In America, they have a bris on Shabbos. They have bris on Shabbos in the shul. Is that what they do in America? But there's no Erev. They bring the baby to the shul where they're going.
No.
If it's a dochak, if it happened, then maybe it'll be made. There's one sheet that holds that it's okay, but I think that lechatchila they wouldn't do that.
They usually don't
They would do it in the house then, I think. But I don't know. I can't say experience. I just think that they wouldn't be matter lechatchila. That they are Erevin already. They are Erevin. So that was tzitzis. Another case where you have the Rabbanan are uprooting the derisa with a shev al tas. All these are passive. Next case is kivsi atzeres. So it's not so. Kivsi atzeres means, well, we just had on Shavuos. We didn't have it, but we should have had it. Kivsi atzeres means there's a zivche shalom le'tzibur. There's a korban that you bring on Shavuos that's called kivsi atzeres. The sheep of Shavuos, which means the zivche shalom le'tzibur. And Rashi says that the case was not dafka Shavuos, but it would be that you bought a shalom lishma. Do you do this rikas adam? So Rashi says that he didn't hear from his rabbi. He's about to pshat the Gemara is over here. Look, about him Rabosai, and he says a pshat that what he thinks that it's referring to a case where you had a korban which was bought shalom lishma on Shabbos. Shavuos fell out on Shabbos, not like this year. But Shavuos fell out on Shabbos, and they did the korban shalom lishma, and is Isra Rabbanan to do zrika? Do you do zrika or not? So it says that Rabbanan said don't do zrika. This is Rabbanan to do zrika on Shabbos, so don't do the zrika, even though the korban is going to be a kosher korban. It's not going to be Yosei to Kivsi Atzeres, but it's still Kalas Vacham Shenizbu Shalom Lishman. It's kosher v'lo olu l'shem vaylam, but it would be a kosher korban. But the rice is supposed to do the zrika, and the Rabbanan say don't do zrika. So this is Rabbanan to do zrika, and they say don't do it, even though the rice is supposed to do zrika. And the last ones are what Moshe said before: shofar, lulav. That the Raisa, when Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, is supposed to blow the shofar, and the one say don't, because you might carry it by mistake, or lulav also. If the first day of Sukkot came out on Shabbos, you're supposed to take the lulav with the Raisa, and the one say don't. So these are 7 kashas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he says, I would have asked you another 7 kashas, but you answered all of them already because you said Shev al Tasa. Answered the Shana Slan Shev al Tasa, Lo Muyaker, who, since you said that passive is not considered uprooting, I'm not going to ask all those kashas, but I have other kashas. So Rav Chisda continues on his attack to try to prove that the Rabbanan could uproot the Raisa, even if it's not going to be a Shabbatas, even if it's going to be active. Kumasei. Tashma, a love tishma'un. It says in the Torah, listen to the Navi. I'm going to make you a Navi, listen to the Prophet. Even if he says to transgress a mitzvah, he also listened to the Navi. That Eliyahu and Har Carmel, he said to bring a korban. That was the case where he challenged the Nevi Abal to bring a korban, and they brought a korban, and he brought a korban. The korban to Baal, they called, no fire came, and Eliyahu, Aneni Hashem Aneni, and it came down on fire. That's called a korban out of the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash was standing in times of Eliyahu. So Shchutei Chutz. It's a koris to bring a korban out of the Beis Hamikdash. Shochet Tumala Tuchi koris, and he did it. How are you allowed to do it? How is he allowed to transgress a mitzvah? So it says you're allowed to listen to a Navi even to transgress a mitzvah, like Eliyahu did in Har Carmel. Hakol Fisha, everything that they do according to the time, the need of the time, that was necessary in order to stop the people from going after the Zohar of the Baal. So Eliyahu saw it necessary to do this test out of the Beis Hamikdash. Shmala, listen to him. So what do you see? That you listen to the Navi to try. And over there was a Kumasei. Over there was active. He brought a korban out of the Beis Hamikdash. So you see that you could listen to the Rabbanan, a Navi over here at least, to go against the Torah.
How far is the Brisa?
Which word?
The Brisa.
Till Shmalo. So you see that you could transgress, the Rabbanan could transgress the Raisa, even Kumasei, even actively. Shani Yosam, the Siva love to Ishmael. That's over there it says so. It says listen to him over there. The pasuk says that it's different, that you're allowed to listen, but that doesn't mean always. But the Gemara says Ligma Mine, learn out from there to other places also. The Gemara doesn't say Navi is different. The Gemara says Migdal Mil Shani. Over there was in order to make a geder, to make a fence. That means in order to protect the Torah. So you're allowed to do it in order to protect the Torah. So the Gemara seems to say that this much we are giving in, and this is what we know, Haruah Shah. There's a concept called Haruah Shah, means like an emergency measure, temporary. So there's a lot of biapsak. They hear the Gemara's giving in, that if it's for a temporary thing, not that in our Mishnah, that they're going to say from now on, that's going to be the halacha. But that Rabbi says you can't do, and it's only going to be a mamzer. The chumrah is not going to be a mamzer l'kula to marry a mamzeres. But here, it's a temporary takana, a rush emergency measure just now. So then, the Rabbanan could make a takana. That's how the Rambam learns the Gemara. I can't say that it says so beferish, but he's saying that the Gemara says there's no difference between Nevuah that Eliyahu and Navi did and what the Chachamim are going to do. If they're doing it in order to make a temporary siyam, they can go against the Torah, even with Kumasei. So we have-
Migdar here means.
like a there, like a fence, to make a
like a
fence.
So make a fence means temporary,
So no,
so I'm not.
but the Gemara before said that the Rambam seems to say when it says over here, Hakol lefi shah shmala. Where does it say that? Yeah, Hakol lefi shah. These words, the Rambam seems to learn that it means that it's only for the time being,
Okay, and it's at the end here when they say it's different because why?
because you're doing it for the purpose of making a fence around the Torah, and it's only temporary. Then you're allowed.
Oh, two things.
That's what it seems like.
Nice.
But the Rambam doesn't talk about so much this. The Rambam doesn't say so clearly at this point of Migdal Milsa, which the Gemara does make a big deal out of. He does say that I does say the Rambam without the Gemara. The Rambam says that the Chachamim could make a temporary takana to go against the Torah if it's only temporary and it's not avodah zarah.
We're talking about if it's not passive. If it's-
Right.
you don't say shame loss,
If it's passive, they can make a takana. No lulav, no shofar forever. No lulav, no shofar on Shabbat because it's sheval tasa, that's passive. But if it's active, they can't. Only if it has two conditions, and one is that it's temporary, and that it's not avodah zarah. That's how the Rambam learns that the pasuk says by avodah zarah you can't listen to another even for one time thing. So there's no temporary, there's no emergency measure as far as avodah zarah. Gemara doesn't say that, but the point about hakol lefi shah, the Rambam seems to stress hakol lefi shah. He doesn't stress the point of Migdal Milsa that it has to be to make a fence around the Torah, but that's how the Rambam seems to say. That's what's considered popular knowledge. That the consensus is based on the Rambam, but I didn't see in the Gemara too much. The Gemara seems to say that if it's you have to have the Migdal Milsa, and it doesn't even stress the point that it has to be only the Fishah.
We're
But-
talking about what Eliyahu and Navi did was temporary.
It was temporary, and it was for the purpose of
and the purpose of
making a
it
fence.
together.
what's together that they shouldn't do avodah zarah over there.
Uh-huh.
This is the famous Gemara of Rosh Hashanah. No, I think it's not the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't even use the words of Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara doesn't use those words. But here it says we learn out from Eliyahu Navi that you're allowed to do it not only a Navi, and the Pashas is over there that when Eliyahu Navi made the test, he did. Taisva said the Rambam seemed to learn that Hashem told him to make the test, and there is no Shkut Echutz, Hashem told him, but it doesn't. In the Pesukim, you don't see that. In the Pesukim, you don't see that Hashem told him to make the test. He made the test on his own, and he davened to Hashem that if you're not going to answer, then people are going to say, it's dangerous if you're not going to do it. But it doesn't seem like Hashem told him. But the Mefarshim seem to say that Hashem told Eliyahu Navi to do it, and he could even learn from there also. Even though some a Navi over there, he can learn out to a Chachamim also. Chachamim can make a geder, they can make a fence to save a mitzvah, but it has to be temporary. The two dots here is a mistake because we're still in the middle of the sugya. If this is still trying to prove that you could uproot a mitzvah even actively, like in our Mishnah, to make a mamzer with Rabbanan, and he could even marry a mamzeres. So that's the question we're working on. Is that true? Tashma, bitla mavuta. Here's a case of somebody gave a get. He gave a get to a shliach at least before it got to the hands of the woman, and then he wants to nullify it. If he gets he gave the get, but now he bitlo.
It's nullified.
Mavutal means that it works. That even though now the halach is you're not supposed to. The Rabbanan made a takana not to nullify a get because it's very dangerous. You nullify a get, and the woman got a hold of it, and really it's not a good get, and she's going to think she's divorced. She's going to get married, and really she's a ish. So the chachamim say don't mavutal. What if you did? Bitlo, you did mavutal. It works, and it becomes mavutal. That's not a good get. Divrei Rabbi. This Rabbi says that if he transgressed the Isser Rabbanan and he wasn't batal to get, it works and the get is batal. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, "Ene yochalo levatlo v'lo lo osafal to know." He can't. That even with the Eved, if he was batal to get, once Rabbanan say don't be mevatel, he can't do it anymore. He can't nullify it. He can't add out on any conditions because in Kema Koch Bezin Yafa. If you're going to say that he could go against Rabbanan, so then the Rabbanan have no strength. The Rabbanan said don't be mevatel, and they're scared that someone's going to give a batal a get, and then the woman's going to think she got a get, and really she didn't, and she get married. Very dangerous. And you have to make that the call for the Chachamim is strong. So if they say you can't be mevatel, it's not going to be batal. What's the case? That's the end of the brisa. And now if Chris is proving that you see Rabbanan can uproot, because Rabbanan are going to say that it is a good get. That's what happened over here. The Rabbanan say you can't be mevatel it. It really wasn't mevatel it, but the brisa says a bittul, it's not a good get. And the Rabbanan are going to say you can't be mevatel, and is a good get. Again, but the rice is not a get. It's not a get because he was mevatel. He nullified it. The rice he has the koch to be mevatel the get. And the Rabbanan say you can't be mevatel it, and they're going to say it is a good get. And she's going to get married with this get. And the rice says she's a married woman. But the rice says it's not a good get. And the Rabbanan say it is a good get. So how could they do such a thing? And it's become a say she's going to go get married. It's not going to just be passive. It's going to be active. That's how come with the rise of bottle get with the rise of the get is nullified. Because of this worry that we have that Bezdin should have a koach. Where are you? That's the words of the Bryce still. If so, that he could do against what the Rabbanan say, so what strength did the Bezdin have? Bezdin were concerned that he shouldn't be invited to get, and he says, even though Bezdin said I shouldn't do it, I'll do it anyway. And you're going to say that he wins, so Bezdin has no strength. They were concerned he shouldn't do such a thing, and that's the end of the Bryce. And now the Gemara takes over of Chisda. The Bryce bottle get. That the Raisa it is not a good get. The bittul works, and the Rabbanan, because they're concerned, that the Rabbanan had an interest over here, a concern that it should not be able to be mubatel. You're going to be matir eishesish to get married, so that's considered a kumasei. How can you do such a thing? Isn't that a raya that the koach chacham have a koach to uproot the Raisa? The Gemara answers, "Man the makadesh adai the Rabbanan makadesh, the afkin Rabbanan kedushin." That whenever somebody gets married, he's always doing it. Kedas Moshe Yisrael. He's always doing it according to the Rabbanan's consent. So when he gets married, it's as if he says always, "I'm marrying on the condition that the Rabbanan agree." And the Rabbanan say that if anybody's ever going to give a get and be mevatel it, they uprooted. They're not happy with such a kedushin. Means even if they were married for 30 years and then he gave a get and it was mevatel it, so the Rabbanan say we did not agree to the kedushin 30 years ago. They were married for many years, and then he gives a get under such a way that the Rabbanan say we don't want it to be done, so they're going to nullify the kedushin retroactively. They say that the marriage that you had, since you married Alpi, only if we agree, we don't agree to such a marriage that somebody's going to give a get and be mevatel. If you're going to give a get and be mevatel, even 30 years later, so then we're not agreeing to this kedushin right now. So the marriage that he was married for so many years.
That's how strong it is, how dangerous it is to give a get, let's say.
That's you just see that the Rabbanan saw that it's worth it for them to nullify his marriage retroactively in order that it shouldn't come out that he's going to be mevatel again and be mevatel. Yeah, okay. But here it comes out that whenever Rabbanan wanted to, that's the Gemara saying it's very similar to Hefker Bez and Hefker, the same idea that Hefker Bez and Hefker they have another route of how to nullify the Raisa without colliding with the Raisa because to take away the money. Here they say Yom HaKadosh. It's true, you could have made a kedushin without our consent, but that's not the way you do it. Whenever you get married, you do it al das chachamim, and we're not agreeing to such a kedushin if ever you're going to be mevatel again. So that's the way that even under the Raisa, they have a handle under the Raisa. They're not going against the Raisa since the power was put in their hand to make the decision. If they agree, they don't agree. And the Rabbanan made that it shouldn't be kedushin. So Rashi learns based on the Gemara coming up that the way at this point I said a little bit fancier than the Gemara said that the Gemara means to say maybe the Gemara means to say at this point Rashi says Hefker Bez and Hefker that the money that he gave the Rabbanan took away the money, took away the ring. They have the right to confiscate people's property. We had yesterday Hefker Bez and Hefker. So that's what they did. They took away. So far the Gemara just says that they took away the kesef kedushin and they made that it's not your money. Amalei Ravina Rabashi attended the Kaddish B'Kaspa. That's only if he was Mekadesh with money. But there are three ways that he Mekadesh. Ish Mekadesh B'Kesef B'Shtar B'Biyah. So Kesef, you can say they did Hefker Bez and Hefker, and it wasn't his money. But Kaddish B'Biyah Ma'ikol Meimah. So over there, the Hari Rabbanan have a handle on his biyah that he did. The Mar says Shavri Rabbanan Bilos the Bilos Nos. Enechanami, all of the biyah that he did, the first biyah that he did, since he said he's doing it, I Rabbanan Kedas Arei At Mekudesh Li B'Biyah Zu. Kedas Moshe Yisrael, but the Rabbanan are not masking. The Rabbanan say we're not masking to such a thing. If you're going to have a bia, the same kedushin, but in such a case where eventually you're going to be mevatel again, we're not masking. And this bia that you're doing is not kedushin; it's a bias nus. Also, to point out that all the 30 years of marriage that they had is also going to be considered bias nus. They were never married retroactively. If somebody's going to give a get and be mevatel, the Rabbanan took away the kedushin from the beginning, and all the 30 years that they were married is considered just plain nus. Funny ba'al apnuya. But the Gemara is happy with that. And that's the way the Rabbanan could take off a kedushin, and they're not colliding, they're not a collision with the Torah. They're not going against the Torah. It's not okadav ben Torah because they have the power to nullify the marriage retroactively since he did it al da'atam. He did it on the condition that they're going to agree. Tashma, Rav Chisda is still trying to prove that the Chachamim could oker adav ben Torah. Even b'kumasei, even actively. Tashma, Amar V'los ben Yaakov. Shamati shebezdin makin bon shalom ben Torah. I heard that the Bezdin has the power to hit and to punish, not like the Torah says. Below law relative Torah, we don't mean that he's going to go against the Torah, the Chachamim, Torah. For the purpose of making a fence around the Torah, the Chachamim have a right to punish even punishments that the Torah didn't prescribe. There's a story where somebody rode a horse, and during the days of the Yevanim, the Greeks, and it's a estimate Rabbanim to ride a horse, but it's not Chayiv Skila. It's not Chayiv, but the Rabbanim, they decided that in order to make a fence, that to show a big punishment, they view the business of clue, and they stoned him, they killed him. Not because he really deserved it, because that was what the times needed. In order to show that the Rabbanan are serious, so they had to make an extreme measure and kill somebody for being over the Rabbanan. So that the Gemara is asking that it's against the Torah. According to the Torah law, this man's not Chayiv Misa, and you're going to kill him. So you're going against the Torah, you're uprooting the Torah. The Torah says don't kill, and you're killing against the Torah law because of the Rabbanan. So don't you see that Rabbanan could uproot the Raisa? Another story that a person, he had relations with his wife in public, maybe a little under a tree, and that the priest, it wasn't a, you can't say that it's Chayiv Malchus for that, but it's a big priestess, and the Rabbanan wanted to make a stop to it. They view the business, they gave him Malchus, and also again, it's not Chayiv Malchus really. So again, the Gemara is asking that with the rights of this man is not Chayiv this punishment. You're punishing him more than the Torah says. So isn't that called that you're okay in a Torah? The Gemara says again, as we said before, that it's just to make a fence, and also say it's only temporary. They didn't change the Torah law; they just said a temporary. That according to the need of the time, they can make a temporary harasha. And that's the end of the sugya. And I think as far as we pass, we don't pass like Rav Chisda, who says they could even do it kumasei, only shaval tasa. Passively, the Rabbanan could discontinue a mitzvah passively, but actively is only if it's going to be a temporary harasha. The Rambam says not going to be avodah zarah, and it's for the purpose of migdal milsa in order to make a fence around the Torah. So you are allowed to make a harasha. We finished all that sugya, and it comes out that when the Mishnah says that the mamzer mizeh, from the second one it's a real mamzer because it's not his wife. But the first one that's really his wife, so it's only mamzer midrabanan, and he cannot marry a mamzeres because with the rice he's kosher, but only midrabanan he can't marry Yisraelis, but he can't marry a mamzeres either. So he's going to marry a gyoris, somebody that's mutter to both. The Mishnah continued. That both husbands cannot, if they're calling him, either one is allowed to. If either one is a Kohen, he's not allowed to be tummy to this woman. The second one is surely not his wife, so he can't be a tummy to her. And the first one, even though it is his wife, he also cannot become tummy to her. Minolan, why should that be so? The chsiv.
What would it mean to become a tummy?
That he buries her, he touches her. After he's a Kohen, and we don't allow him to bury her. Minolan, the chsiv. First of all, how do you know that there's such a din b'chlal that a husband Kohen could become tummy to his wife after she died? It doesn't say in the pasuk. It only talks about the 6 relatives. It says a father, mother, brother, sister, and a son, daughter. It doesn't say a wife. So first of all, there's a drasha that says yes. Love only to his relatives, and the pasuk is his relatives as follows: the father, mother, etc. But the Gemara says Sheiro means his wife. So that's where it says that it is such a halacha that a kohen could become tamei if his wife dies. But the pasuk says another pasuk to say dafka if she's a kosher wife. According to the drash, the Gemara means that a husband should not become tamei in a way that's going to be mechalel him, in a way that's considered a chilul. Sometimes a husband is allowed to become tamei to his wife who died, sometimes not. If it's a kosher marriage, so then he could become tamei to the kohen, could become tamei to his wife, who died, because she's a kosher wife. But if she's a ishta psula, so then he could not. And here, that's the drash over here, that since she was Muzana, what happened over here? She got married to somebody else because she thought that her husband died, but it wasn't really true. So she's called a znus. It's not called such an onus, and therefore he can't be metameter anymore because he's not allowed to be married to her. Is that good? She got married to the second husband, and then the first husband comes back, and then they didn't get divorced, and she died. He's not allowed to become tummy to her. Next Gemara. That neither one is allowed, neither husband, not the first one, not the second one, has a right to her findings. Usually, a husband, the findings of a wife go to the husband. And here, after this happens, she doesn't get those findings. Why? The more explains why that's so. The only reason why Rabbanan say that a woman's findings goes to her husband is because there shouldn't be animosity between them. It means the husband feels, I'm supporting her, I'm working the whole day, and I'm giving her everything she needs, and then she finds some money and she keeps it. Like he doesn't feel right about that. So in order to take away the animosity, her findings go to the husband. But over here, we're interested in animosity. Here, on the contrary, we want them to get divorced. Here, we don't want them to stay married. Usually, the Rabbanan make a setting that there should be a happy marriage. So it shouldn't be that he's supporting her and she finds something, it's hers. So she's supposed to give it to him. But over here, we do want to break the marriage because he's supposed to get divorced. And if they didn't, on the contrary, we'll encourage that there should be animosity. That she finds something and she doesn't give it to him, so he'll divorce her.
So let's see, still talking about how are they married? Just
A regular marriage, they're married.
yeah.
They're married, and she finds $1 million. So really, with the rights, she'd be allowed to keep it. The Rabbanan said it goes to the husband. There shouldn't be animosity.
Isn't that totally on the designers?
Yeah, the Gemara could have said that also. They're good. The Gemara could have said that the reason why is the animosity because he's supporting her. He feels like I'm supporting her, and then she finds something she keeps to. But after all my hard work, how can we not consider it? So the Gemara could have said, like Rebbe Lezer is saying, that since he had his namuzono, so there's no reason why he should get the mitzvah. But the Gemara says a little stronger that we were even happy that there's going to be animosity over here because we want them to get divorced. They're not supposed to stay married. That was the case over here. That was the case. She married somebody else, and we said that we made big consequences. The consequences is that she has to get divorced. And now, if they didn't get divorced, then she found some money. So let her keep it, and then the husband's going to get angry and he'll divorce her. That's what we want. We want in this case that he should divorce her. But Ma'asiyah, he doesn't get her earnings. Usually, the husband gets the earnings of the wife, and that's like we said because Mizonos, he supports her, and her earnings go to him. Over here, we said that he doesn't get her earnings. Why not? Because he doesn't support her. Why does usually the Chacham say that a husband gets? The Gemara says it on the Mazon, it's not on the Metzia. On the Gemara says it on Ma'asiyah, not on the earnings, not on the findings. But I think it's true also only because the Eva, because he gets Mazonas. He gives her Mazonas. Here it says that the reason why he gets her earnings is because he's supporting her. But over here, since over here he's not supporting her, we say she has no right to Mazonas. He's not supporting her. So then there's no reason why she get her earnings. Also, he doesn't have a right to nullify her vows. Usually, a husband can nullify the wife's vows, and here he doesn't. Why is that? How come the Torah gave the right to the husband to nullify the wife's vows in order that she shouldn't become what's the word? Tisgana, disgraced. If maybe a better word than that. But the point is detestable. So the Rashi brings out that the only time that a husband can nullify his wife's vows is not any kind of vow. It's like Rashi says, Inoy Nefesh, Shalo Yerchad, Shalo Eskashe, the list Rashi, that if she made a vow that is afflicting herself. So that's the kind of a neder that Lanos Nefesh. Those are the kind of vows that he has a right to nullify. And we don't want that he should become disgusted from her, the fact that she's not going to wash, she's not going to eat something, she's not going to adorn herself. But over here, we want him to become disgusted with her because we want that he should divorce her. So here, there's no reason to allow him to nullify her vows. How much time we have? Some time still. It says that the list continues. We're now on the Afsad Aleph from an Aleph that Mishnah said that amongst the things that consequences is that if she was a Bas Yisrael, now she was Mazana because she had relations with another man, she's not allowed to marry Cohen anymore. And then Moshe says Pshita, that goes without saying. If we consider it as Nus, so then she's not allowed to have relations with can't marry Cohen anymore. The Moshe says you're right, that goes without saying. But the Chiddush is the next point. It says Bas Levi Min HaMeiser, that if she was a Bas Levi, she's not allowed to eat Meiser anymore because it is Nus. That's the Stricha, that's the Chiddush. And then Moshe not surprised why she's not allowed to eat Meiser. Bas Levi Min HaMeiser mean Mishnah is Nus, even if it is considered as Nus, is a not allowed to eat Meiser. According to the Rabbanan of Reb Meir, Meiser is regular chulin. That's regular food. That surely she doesn't become Pasal Achara. But even Reb Meir that holds that a woman, only a non-Kohen is not allowed to eat Meiser, but he doesn't say that is Nus, Pasal her from eating Meiser. Just like you might think that just like Truma, Pasal a woman, a Zona cannot eat Truma, so could a Zona not eat Meiser according to Reb Meir? So it says no, even according to Reb Meir, a woman who's Mazana still could eat Meiser. Bas Levi that was captured, which was that she had relations, or she was and somehow had relations of Bilas Nus, still she gets Meiser and she could eat it. So why are you saying that she doesn't get Meiser? That doesn't make sense. It means this halacha that says in the Mishnah Bas Levi becomes Pasal Min HaMeiser because it's Nus. Why should that be? Rav Shesha is Kanas. He doesn't go according to the regular rules. Usually a Bas Levi who's Mazana still could eat mice, even according to Rav Meir. But here she may not because of Kanas. We made a Kanas over here because we want to make more consequences in order that she should investigate before she gets married. She there are a lot of consequences, and one of them is even that she's not going to get mice if she's a Bas Levi, even though usually even a Zona could get mice. Taisa points out that here the Kanas goes even according to Rabbanan, that mice is really fooling. But now the one of the Knas, even according to Rabbanan, we're going to make that a Bas Levi cannot get Maisa. And the Rambam says not only to get Maisa, she doesn't even eat Maisa, even though it's regular Chulin. And here we're going to say that the Bas Levi, who is Mazan over here, this case of Znus, is not going to allow her even to eat Maisa either. Bas Kohen Min HaTruma, Afidu B'Truma D'Rabbanan, that even there's no chiddush that a Bas Kohen cannot eat Truma, that's Pashat, that she's Mazana, so she can't eat Truma anymore. But the chiddush is even Truma D'Rabbanan, she also cannot eat, even though it's not really Truma with the Raisa. But this Nus is going to stop even from eating Truma D'Rabbanan. Then Yoshim Ksubas. The Mishnah said that neither of the Yoshim of two husbands, both of the husbands, are not going to get her Ksuba. But we learned the Mishnah, we said it doesn't make sense because she has no Ksuba. A few lines earlier it says that she doesn't get Ksuba, and now it says that the Yoshim don't get the Ksuba. Of course they don't get the Ksuba. She doesn't get Ksuba. What's there to Yarshin? Ksuba Ma'yavirte. What kind of Ksuba? Amra Papa, Ksuba's been in different. Ksuba's been in different literally means the Ksuba of the male sons. What does that mean? So the words alone don't say anything, but it's a concept that says someplace else what it means. That sometimes a wife will make a condition with her husband. What's a ksuba usually? That if he divorces her, or he dies first, so she gets ksuba. That's what ksuba is. That he's chayiv, or he obligates himself, or he gives a certain amount more than the chachamim obligated. That if he ever divorces her, he's going to pay her. Or if he dies in her lifetime, she's going to get that money. But if she dies first, then there's no ksuba. That's regular, right? That if the husband dies first, he didn't divorce her, they lived that well, and she died first, so there's no ksuba. But there's a thing called ksubas b'nin different. Ksubas b'nin different means the ksuba of the male sons, which means that she stipulates in the marriage that if she dies first, the money which is designated for ksuba, when he eventually dies, should go to the common yorshim that they have. Means if the sons that she has from him, if he has other wives and the other sons, she doesn't want that money which is designated for her, even though she didn't get it at the end. She died first, but if she dies, it shouldn't. It stays. To keep it to her, to her family, so to her children. So it stays in. They don't get it right away as soon as she died because it's not hers, it's the husband's. But when the husband eventually is going to die, so it doesn't go to all of his Yorshim equally. It goes only to the sons that they had, the children that they had from that marriage, that union. Their children, even though he has other sons, but that ksuba doesn't go to the sons; it goes to her. It goes to her sons, and not to his sons.
It goes to a joint son.
A joint son. That's right. Joint sons. Not to the children that he has from another wife.
Yeah.
And that's a chiddush. So even though she doesn't get ksuba, but you might think that when he dies, her children from him should get the ksuba that was coming to her. But the Gemara says, and that also pshita. That also goes without saying that if she doesn't get ksuba, why should the children get ksuba? The answer is ma'av but the isura kansura bana, the zara lo kansura bana. You might think that the knas, all things a knas over here. You might think that the knas is only to her herself personally, who she did the isura of marrying a second time. But the children didn't do any of it. Maybe there's no knas, then they should get her ksuba eventually when the husband dies. Kamash malon, they took away the ksuba completely, even from the children. You might think the Avda Yisura Kansura Banam to her that she did a nisr by marrying the second husband. They want to penalize, but to her children, Lazar no Kansura Banam. Maybe they didn't penalize the children. They didn't. They penalized that also. Yeah. Just to find out a couple of lines to finish, they lose that also. And the last thing the Mishnah said, if either one of them died without children, with the first husband or second husband, so the brother would only do chalitza, not yibum. And the Gemara explains, the husband of the brother of the first husband, some of the raisa, they need a chalitza. The raisa can do yibum also, because he's the real husband. The first one is the real husband. The second one's not husband at all. And he died without children. Some of the raisa do yibum or chalitza. But with Rabbanan, they said don't do yibum. So chalitza with the raisa, that of course you need a chalitza with the raisa. You could also do a yibum with the raisa, but the Rabbanan took away the yibum.
Yeah.
but they left the chalitza, which with the rice, you need something. But Achav Shel Sheni, he's not really a husband at all. Some of the rice don't need anything. Cholis b'Rabbanan. The whole chalitza is only b'Rabbanan because with the rice she goes without any chalitza because she's not married to him. But lo yabim, lo the rice, lo b'Rabbanan. There's no yibum because they're not married.
It's not a Hava.
Ad kan.
We say chalitza. The first chalitza is the rabbanon because really Ibn would be okay.
The first chalitza of the
Meaning
first
of the
husband
first husband.
is the right. No, it's the rice. The whole is the rice.
The first husband.
Okay, she's really married to the first husband. So when he dies without children, so there's a real yibum going, a real chiyuv, a real zika there, a real zika.
The chalitza is because they made a gezerah not to do Ibn.
Right, but the fact that they're doing chalitza is on a Torah
Is a-
because there's a real zika.
I
It's
see.
not a way of saying there's a zika the rice. So do chalitza, but yibum we're not going to allow. And by the second husband,
And
there's
by
no
the second one,
zika.
there's nothing, but still the rabbanon we
Do
said
a
do
chalitza.
chalitza.
Okay, yashikach everybody. Thank you,
Wow.
thank you. Shalom aleichem. Avon Citron.
Maxwell Mendel.
Nachshon. Oh, so
Mendel.
you're from
I was from Baltimore.
Baltimore. So you used to be on the screen.
Yeah, I used to.
Ah, so here you are.
Finally, yeah.
Oh, you did Aliyah. Wow, you're here.
Yes.
Wow, welcome, Baruch haba, and Yishuv too.
I was driving the van. when
Yeah,
I was-
yes. Now I didn't recognize you till you mentioned now. Wow. So you're here to stay.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
In